Hello everyone, I'm Mortified, and today I'm here to talk about the subject known as Toon Force, briefly explaining the concept, then diving into why I believe people have been misled into believing Gear 5 Luffy has this now popularized attribute. And yes, that's right, if you click in this video expecting for me to teach you on why Luffy has Toon Force, instead prepare for me to debunk the flawed reasonings to suggest suchness. And to start things off, I'll first have to explain Toon Force in a general sense. Toon Force is a term created by the fictional community which is meant to envelope all the inexplainable capabilities behind cartoon characters' absurdity revolving around their mechanisms. Essentially, simply put, a title for the power behind all cartoon-based abilities. Usually these abilities are connected to comedic purposes and values most times. Things such as a character running off of a surface and temporarily defying gravity for the sake of a joke to look at the ground or break the fourth wall and glance at the audience would be examples of Toon Force being used. And when discussing cartoon mechanics, there are 4 key factors that must be applied to set character in order to establish that they indeed have Toon Force. These 4 attributes in particular are defined by Versus Battle Wiki being fourth wall breaking, dimensional storage, reality warping, and body control. The confusion with all this Toon Force shenanigans begins when either people A. misunderstand one of the 4 certain aspects of Toon Force, or B. people just use fallacious reasoning, usually being a correlation/association fallacy, in the sense that it suggests that due to a character having a single property of Toon Force category, they would either obtain the rest of the traits or qualify for the category, which are both flawed ideals as logically it doesn't follow. For example, if animal X has spots and the other animal Y also has spots, it then would become the same animal or be in the same category, obtaining all of animal X's attributes, which essentially is the logic that people who have been led to believe that Luffy has Toon Force are using. The reason this holds precedence is that in order for a character to fall under the Toon Force category, which is separate and independent from the reality warping category, they must have 2 or more attributes of the Toon Force category to solidify a position. As for example, breaking the fourth wall alone simply scales nowhere, as it's merely interacting with the audience, which is representative of the fourth wall as a performance stage. And as for reality warping itself, explanatorily is independent, and nor is body control or dimensional storage alone on their own enough to categorize someone as a Toon Force building character. As I'll explain, Luffy only has one of these Toon Force requirements. All of this surrounding the semi-recent release of Gear 5 Luffy, informing the audience of him truly being a Zoan, brought forth confusion with the debut of his Devil Fruit Awakening. Devil Fruit Awakenings, depending on the user, inherit different abilities. However, in Luffy's case, regardless of him being confirmed to be a Zoan, he seemingly holds the attributes of Alogia and Paramecia Awakenings, which can affect the world around them, granting Luffy the ability to warp whatever he physically interacts with, making it into a rubbery-like essence, forming a temporary environment close by infused with the properties of rubber. This in itself can be described as a mild degree of reality warping, as Devil Fruit Awakenings only temporarily affect the world around them to a finite range, whereas a more definitive, powerful, high degree of reality warping, for example, will be affecting an infinitely transcending multiverse without time-based limitations. Nonetheless, it's only a small speck of reality warping and not Toon Force whatsoever. Katakuri, Crocodile, and Doflamingo can all touch their surroundings and turn it into their Devil Fruit nature. This being due to their awakening similar to Luffy grants them a mild degree of temporary reality warping, not Toon Force. Assuming Luffy has Toon Force on this basis suggests that they would also have Toon Force, which is absolutely ridiculous, and if you believe that's the case, you're just lost in the sauce. And to address some headassery, in case you're looking to type in the comments about how I missed body control, however, this attribute is due to Luffy's Devil Fruit nature that makes him into a rubber man in his base Zoan state. This rubber body allows him to stretch, bend, and or slightly manipulate his body seemingly unnaturally. This is exclusive to the rubber nature of his Devil Fruit, granting him a body control essence per se, although it should be considered that characters like Katakuri can also be interpreted to have body control which are contingent on Devil Fruit powers, enabling slight size manipulation and the abilities to shape, sharpen, and or bend their bodies. This is due to the consumption of Devil Fruits and not cartoon physiology, as they all were once regular humans as they're described in One Piece verse prior to eating Devil Fruits, as it's not a biological matter. Taking into account everything discussed so far, Luffy only has a slight degree of reality warping due to his Devil Fruit Awakening allowing him to affect the world around him, and by default he has a body control due to his passive rubber state upon eating a Devil Fruit, making him into a rubber man. This is important when considering that he is only able to have a body control due to his Devil Fruit nature and not true cartoon physiology, whereas the likes of characters such as Tom or Jerry, for example, can utilize body control upon interacting with certain circumstances, and this is due to a comedic value that they present, as they aren't passively or in a rubber-like state or anything similar to Luffy. Rather, due to cartoon mechanisms, can have their bodies temporarily alter for comedic value. Things such as being flattened by something then temporarily retain the shape of what they've been smashed by would be examples of this. And now that it's hopefully understood that Luffy only has a mild degree of reality manipulation and a passively default-like body control physiology due to his rubber state, we can begin to narrow down the perspective as to why Luffy having Toon Force is invalid. And before I completely conclude, there is one final mammoth tier argument I must address, as it involves the semi-famous Glasses feat, where further confusion is created, so I'll be refuting this now common misunderstanding about it. In the instance where Luffy turns his hair into glasses, two key things take place, neither of which involve Toon Force, and to shortly explain what occurs in the moment where Luffy turned his hair into a pair of glasses by using a strand, a set of hair, which is merely a demonstration of Luffy utilizing his Devil Fruit awakening, as he turned his own hair into a robot-like state, which then allowed him to manipulate the hair and shape it into whatever he pleased, which is a common factor for whatever Luffy manipulates with his awakening, such as the ground and Kaido, etc. The glasses themselves initially were a piece of Luffy's own hair, which is important considering following that reasoning leads to the conclusion that Luffy simply used the transmutation to change his hair into a rubber-like state to then become glasses, and transmutation isn't inherently Toon Force and more importantly wouldn't fall under dimensional storage, as transmutation is simply the action of changing or the state of being changed into another form. Dimensional storage can be described as essentially making things appear out of thin air, to create something out of seemingly nothing, and indeed potent ability if not using portals or access to dimensions and pocket spaces, which also can be interpreted to be dimensional storage. Nevertheless, Luffy in zero capacity has this attribute, as he isn't making the glasses appear out of thin air for any comical purpose. Rather, he used his awakening, which falls under transmutation, thus this analogous to the Toon Force category as a whole. So in all, seeing as Luffy fails to have dimensional storage, has never broken the fourth wall in canon, only has slight arguable body control solely due to his rebel devil fruit nature, thus a default being non-sufficient evidence of Toon Force, having only a slight degree of reality warping via his awakening, which is according to VSB and other sites, a deemed different ability entirely which can't be logically argued as Toon Force when attempting to appeal to them in the first place. As I've mentioned, Toon Force is a term invented by the fictional scaling community to categorize a certain set of cartoon abilities that commonly lack background information, and because of this history appealing to the title of Toon Force prowess is blatantly agenda to upscale Luffy to a higher tier of power, a pointless effort as unfortunately he caps at multi-continental and can't beat Prime Naruto in any fashion currently. A mere temporary effective reality warping ability and a rubber body is not enough to contest the arguably universal plus being that is Naruto Uzumaki, and this is coming from a One Piece fan who constantly bashes the Narutoverse. I'm simply coming from a place of honestly shutting down the retardation. Things such as stretching Oda claiming he made Luffy out of rubber for comedy will not be tolerated. And to lastly address, no, Warner Bros did not help with the Gear 5 episode. You've been bamboozled, wake up to reality. I hope you learned something today, and also to my fellow One Piece fans, please get better at scaling. Luffy isn't even planetary, and if you still believe he has Toon Force after reaching this far, you're coping. Lastly, shout out to Shenron for editing this video. Also join my Discord server Sabadi, link is in the bio. If you disagree and would like to debate or simply become a part of the community, drop your thoughts in the comments. Mortified out, thanks for watching.